The guests mocked the black maid's accent in the mansion foyer until the Mafia boss shattered their confidence. Rosa Williams was no stranger to the judgmental glances and whispers that followed her through the grand halls of the DeLuca mansion. She had been working here for a year now, and while the family was kind to her, the guests who often visited their lavish home were a different story. Rosa's soft voice, with its distinct southern drawl, was often the subject of their amusement. She could hear their hushed laughs and mocking comments every time she spoke. It was as if her accent made her less than them. Today was no different. The foyer was filled with the chatter of guests dressed in their finest clothes, sipping champagne and laughing. Rosa had just finished arranging the flowers on the marble table when a group of well-dressed men and women approached her. One of them, a woman with perfectly manicured nails and a mocking smile, raised an eyebrow when Rosa greeted them. "Oh, how cute," the woman said in a voice dripping with sarcasm. "I can barely understand you with that accent. Where are you from, darling?" Rosa felt the heat rise in her cheeks, but remained silent. She had learned long ago that saying nothing was often the best response. But the woman wasn't done. She chuckled, turning to her companions. "I don't know how anyone can take her seriously. It's like listening to a cartoon character." The laughter that followed stung Rosa more than she cared to admit. She kept her eyes down, focusing on the tray of glasses she was about to carry into the next room. As she passed by them, she could hear their continued snickers. Rosa's hands trembled slightly as she walked away, trying to steady herself. She had never been good at standing up for herself, always choosing to avoid confrontation. But today, the humiliation felt like too much. She felt small, invisible in a room full of people who could never understand the life she had led. Just as she was about to turn the corner, she froze. The sound of footsteps behind her made her pause. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Vincent DeLuca, the Mafia boss, was known for his commanding presence. He didn't need to raise his voice for people to notice him. She had seen him many times before, but never like this. He was walking toward her, his usual cold expression softened with a look of concern. Rosa had never seen him show any emotion like this, and for a moment, she wondered if she had imagined it. "Rosa," Vincent said, his voice low and steady. "What's going on here?" Rosa swallowed, unsure of what to say. "Nothing, sir. Just, don't lie," he interrupted, his gaze turning to the group of guests still laughing behind her. The group fell silent as they realized who was speaking. Vincent's presence alone commanded respect. He turned to face them, his eyes narrowing. "You think mocking someone's accent is funny?" he asked, his tone even but filled with an undeniable authority. The room seemed to freeze as everyone waited for the next move. The woman who had mocked Rosa earlier cleared her throat, but her smile was gone. "Mr. DeLuca, we didn't mean any harm, just having some fun." "Fun?" Vincent's voice was colder now, sharper than before. "I don't tolerate people making fun of others in my house. Not on my watch." The woman opened her mouth to protest, but Vincent held up his hand. "No, you're done." He turned back to Rosa, his gaze softening. "Are you all right?" Rosa nodded, though her heart was still racing. She couldn't believe what was happening. Vincent DeLuca, the man who controlled entire empires, was standing up for her, a mere maid. It was as if the world had shifted beneath her feet. "Go back to your guests," Vincent said, his voice steady once more, "and leave Rosa alone. She's more important than all of you combined." As Vincent turned to leave, the guests stood in stunned silence, unsure of how to react. For the first time in a long while, Rosa felt seen. She felt like she mattered. And for a brief moment, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could be different now. Vincent DeLuca had always been a man of few words. He preferred his actions to speak for him, and they usually did. From his ruthless business dealings to his ironclad control over the DeLuca family empire, Vincent was a force to be reckoned with. But today, something felt different. As he stood in the grand foyer of his mansion, his eyes still locked on the guests who had mocked Rosa, a strange warmth spread through him. He had not planned to intervene in this way. He was used to maintaining distance, never getting involved in the petty issues of those who worked for him. But seeing Rosa, a woman who had only ever shown him respect and loyalty, treated so cruelly had ignited something inside him. He turned to leave the group, his voice cutting through the silence. "You're not welcome here anymore," he said, his tone cold and final. The guests shuffled awkwardly, unsure of what to do next. They had expected the Mafia boss to turn a blind eye to the small interactions that happened beneath his nose. They had assumed that, like many others in their world, he would choose to ignore the wrongdoings of his own people. But this time, Vincent DeLuca was different. As he walked away from the stunned crowd, he glanced back at Rosa. She was standing by the door, her eyes downcast, trying to disappear into the shadows. "Come with me," he said, his voice softer than before. Rosa looked up in surprise, her breath catching in her throat. "Sir?" she asked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. "I said, come with me," Vincent repeated. His gaze softened just enough to show a hint of vulnerability. Rosa hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do. She had never been in this position before. Her entire life, she had been the one serving, never the one being served. But today, something inside her told her to take a chance. Slowly, she stepped forward, her feet carrying her across the marble floor as Vincent led her down the hallway. They entered a room at the end of the hall, a quiet study that Vincent often retreated to when he needed a moment alone. He closed the door behind them and turned to face Rosa. "You shouldn't have been treated like that," he said, his voice low but steady. Rosa felt her heart race as she stood before him. This man, the one who controlled everything, the one who commanded the loyalty of so many, was now speaking to her as if she mattered. "It's not your fault," Vincent continued. "I've seen people treat others like they're beneath them. But this was different." Rosa swallowed, her eyes still on the floor. She didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially not in this way. Vincent took a step closer, his presence overwhelming, but his eyes were kind. "You've worked for me faithfully," he said, "and I can't let people treat you like this. You deserve respect, Rosa." His words sent a shiver down her spine. She had never expected to hear something like this from him. She had always seen him as distant, detached from the world outside his power. But in this moment, he was different. He was showing her something more than just his position. He was showing her his humanity. Rosa looked up, meeting his gaze for the first time since their interaction began. Her heart skipped a beat. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Vincent nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Don't thank me yet," he said. "I'm not done." He walked over to his desk and grabbed a pen, scribbling something quickly on a piece of paper. Rosa watched him, her mind racing with confusion. What was happening? Was this real? Was he really standing up for her? "I'm giving you the position of head housekeeper," Vincent said, handing her the paper. "Starting immediately." Rosa blinked, her mouth falling open in surprise. "Head housekeeper?" she repeated, unsure if she was hearing him correctly. "Yes," Vincent confirmed. "You've earned it. And you won't be treated like that again. Not under my roof." Rosa could hardly believe what she was hearing. She had worked her entire life to get by, never expecting anything more than to be invisible to the world. But here, in this moment, Vincent DeLuca was offering her something that she had never dreamed of, a future where she could stand tall and be seen. She reached for the paper, her hands trembling. "Thank you," she said again, this time with more conviction. "You don't have to thank me," Vincent replied. "Just do your job. You've earned it." With those words, the power dynamic between them shifted. For the first time, Rosa felt like she truly belonged. She wasn't just the maid anymore. She was someone who had earned her place in this world. And for the first time, she felt like she could truly stand beside Vincent DeLuca, not just beneath him. As she left the study, a new sense of confidence filled her. The world around her seemed different somehow, more open, more promising. And though she had a long way to go, Rosa knew that her life was changing, starting with the man who had just shattered the confidence of those who thought they could put her down. Rosa walked back to the main hallway, her heart still pounding with disbelief. The weight of Vincent's words lingered in her mind. She had always known that the DeLuca family was powerful, but to have someone like him take notice of her, to stand up for her in front of his guests, felt like something out of a dream. She had worked in this mansion for so long, but today, for the first time, she felt like she truly belonged. As she passed by the grand staircase, she could hear the faint sounds of laughter and conversation from the guests still gathered in the foyer. But today, their voices didn't have the same sting. Their words didn't reach her anymore. She had never been good at standing up for herself, but now she felt like she could finally do so. The house, which had once felt cold and impersonal, now felt different to her. It felt like home. She glanced around, taking in the polished marble floors, the crystal chandeliers, and the lavish furnishings. All of it was beautiful, but none of it mattered as much as the respect she was finally receiving. As she walked down the hallway, she caught a glimpse of Vincent from the corner of her eye. He was standing by the large windows overlooking the garden, his back turned to her. She paused for a moment, unsure of whether she should approach him or leave him to his thoughts. But something inside her told her that this moment was important. She had to speak up. "Mr. DeLuca," she called softly. Vincent turned to face her, his expression as composed as ever. But there was a softness in his eyes that she hadn't seen before. "Yes?" he asked, his voice calm, yet warm. I just wanted to say thank you," Rosa said, her voice trembling slightly. "You didn't have to do that, but you did. And I'm grateful." Vincent studied her for a moment, as if considering her words. Then he nodded slowly. "You don't need to thank me," he said. "You deserve respect, Rosa. More than anyone here." Rosa felt a lump form in her throat. She had spent so many years feeling invisible, and now, for the first time, someone was acknowledging her. She wasn't just the maid. She wasn't just the woman who cleaned the mansion and took care of everyone else. She was someone who mattered. She could see the faintest smile tug at the corner of Vincent's lips. "You've earned this," he said, "and you'll never have to put up with that kind of treatment again." Rosa nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. But she knew there was something more Vincent had to say. There was always more with him. "You'll be working directly with me from now on," he continued. "I've decided to make some changes around here. You're officially in charge of the staff. No more hiding in the background." The words hit Rosa like a wave. "In charge of the staff?" she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes," Vincent said. "You're more than capable, Rosa. I see the way you carry yourself, the way you handle everything with grace. It's time you were given the recognition you deserve." Rosa couldn't believe it. She had never dreamed of such a thing. Being in charge of the staff, working directly with Vincent. It all felt surreal. I don't know what to say," she managed to say, her mind still reeling. "You don't have to say anything," Vincent replied. "Just do your job, and keep doing what you're doing. I trust you." The words were simple, but they carried so much weight. Rosa felt like she was standing on solid ground for the first time in her life. She was no longer just a shadow in the mansion. She was someone with purpose, someone who mattered. "Thank you," Rosa said, her voice full of emotion. Vincent gave her a nod. "You've earned it, Rosa." As she turned to leave, a new sense of purpose filled her. She had always been the one who cleaned up after others, the one who made sure everything was perfect, but now she was the one being recognized. She was the one in charge. And as she walked down the hallway, a feeling of pride swelled in her chest. It was a new beginning. For Rosa, and for her future. No longer would she hide in the shadows. She was ready to step into the light. Rosa stood in the grand dining room, the sounds of clinking glasses and quiet conversations filling the air around her. She had never been one to be in the spotlight, but today, as she moved through the room, something had shifted. No longer was she the invisible maid who merely cleaned up after others. She was someone with purpose, someone whose presence mattered. The staff, once those she had served beside, now looked at her with new respect. She had been given the position of head housekeeper, a position she had never dreamed of, yet here she was, walking through the mansion like she truly belonged. She caught sight of Vincent across the room. He was standing by the fireplace, his back to her, but even from this distance, she could feel the weight of his gaze. It was strange, she thought, how something so simple as a glance could make her feel so seen, so noticed. She hesitated for a moment, then walked toward him. The closer she got, the more the reality of her new position sank in. Her footsteps echoed softly on the polished marble floors, and as she approached, Vincent turned to face her. His sharp eyes softened as he took in her presence, a slight nod of acknowledgement. "Rosa," he said, his voice as steady as ever. "How's everything going so far?" She smiled, a small but genuine smile that she had not realized she was holding back. "It's going well, Mr. DeLuca," she replied, her voice steady, though inside, her heart raced. "The staff seems to respect the changes." Vincent's eyes met hers, and for a moment, the room seemed to fade into the background. It was just the two of them, standing in this vast space, with nothing but the truth of their words and the connection between them. "I knew I made the right choice," Vincent said quietly, almost as if to himself. You've earned it, Rosa. The words struck her harder than she expected. She had worked so hard, for so long, never thinking she would be seen, never imagining someone like Vincent would notice her. And yet, here she was, standing before him as a peer. She had a position, she had power, and she had earned both. The weight of that realization pressed against her chest, but it was a good weight. She felt grounded, more certain of herself than she ever had before. "Thank you, Mr. DeLuca," she said, her voice full of gratitude. Vincent gave her a small, approving nod, his eyes never leaving hers. For a moment, there was an unspoken understanding between them, a recognition of how far she had come and how far she still had to go. As Rosa stood there, Vincent took a step forward, closer than she had ever seen him. He didn't seem to notice the effect his proximity had on her. His presence, strong and unwavering, was enough to fill the space between them. "I want to make sure you feel supported in your new role," Vincent said. "If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to let me know. You're not alone in this." Rosa's heart skipped a beat. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. She had always been on her own, relying on no one but herself. But now, with Vincent's words, it felt like the walls she had built around herself were slowly starting to crumble. She felt herself nodding, almost in disbelief. "I won't let you down, Mr. DeLuca," she said, her voice full of determination. Vincent smiled just slightly. It wasn't a smile of approval, but one that spoke of understanding. He placed a hand on her shoulder, an unexpected gesture, but one that felt oddly comforting. "I know you won't," he said. "Now go on, there's work to be done. We'll talk more later." As Rosa turned to leave, a new sense of confidence filled her. She had always been the one in the background, watching as others moved ahead, but now, she was at the forefront. She had a purpose. She had a role. And for the first time in her life, she truly felt like she was making a difference. She walked away from Vincent, but not as the same person who had entered the room. Something had changed in her, and as she looked around the mansion, she realized that it was not just the mansion that had changed, it was her. She was no longer the quiet, invisible maid. She was Rosa Williams, the head housekeeper, a woman who had earned her place in this world. And that realization filled her with a pride she had never known. Rosa had never felt more in control of her life. The days since her promotion had passed in a blur, and as she stood in the mansion's grand kitchen, overseeing the staff, she couldn't help but smile. It wasn't just the new role that made her feel this way. It was the quiet confidence she now carried with her, the knowledge that she was finally being seen for who she truly was. The kitchen was bustling with activity as usual, but today, there was a different energy in the air. The staff moved with more purpose, more respect. Rosa had worked alongside them for years, but now, as their superior, she felt the weight of her position settle comfortably on her shoulders. She glanced over at the head chef, who had once treated her with indifference. He nodded at her with a smile, acknowledging her authority without a word. Rosa felt a sense of satisfaction. She had worked hard for this. The feeling of being respected, of being seen, was something she had never truly experienced before. It was new, and it was exhilarating. As she walked through the kitchen, she passed by the back door, where Vincent stood, his figure silhouetted against the light streaming through the windows. He was leaning against the doorframe, watching her with that familiar, intense gaze. Rosa's heart skipped a beat. It had been days since their last conversation, and though she had tried to push the thoughts of him out of her mind, she found it difficult to ignore the way his presence seemed to linger in the background of her every thought. She approached him, her footsteps echoing in the otherwise quiet hallway. When Vincent turned to face her, she saw the same softness in his eyes that she had seen before, that rare expression that made her feel like she wasn't just another staff member in his mansion. "You're doing well," he said, his voice calm but full of approval. Rosa stopped in front of him, her hands clasped in front of her. "Thank you, Mr. DeLuca," she replied, her voice steady but carrying a note of gratitude. "The staff has been great. They're adjusting well." Vincent nodded, his eyes scanning her face, as though searching for something. "I knew you would do well," he said softly. Rosa felt the weight of his words. She had never expected to hear such praise from someone like him. Vincent DeLuca was a man who didn't hand out compliments easily, and the fact that he was acknowledging her in this way meant more to her than she could put into words. "I'm just doing my job," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Vincent's gaze softened. You're doing more than just your job. You're showing everyone here what it means to lead with integrity. Rosa blinked, taken aback by his words. She had never thought of herself as a leader. She had always been the quiet one, the one who observed from the sidelines, never drawing attention to herself. But now, with Vincent's words hanging in the air between them, she began to see herself in a new light. She wasn't just the maid, the housekeeper, the invisible worker. She was someone who had earned her place, someone who had the power to make a difference. I never thought of it that way, Rosa said, her voice barely audible. Vincent smiled, though it was a rare, fleeting thing. You're more capable than you realize. His words lingered in the air, and for the first time, Rosa allowed herself to believe them. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was someone with purpose, someone who could lead. The realization filled her with a sense of pride, and as she looked at Vincent, she saw him in a new light as well. He wasn't just the Mafia boss, the man who ruled everything with an iron fist. He was someone who saw potential in people, someone who could recognize greatness even in those who had been overlooked. Thank you, Rosa said, her voice steady now. Vincent nodded, his gaze intense. You've earned it, Rosa, and you'll continue to earn it. As he turned to walk away, Rosa stood there for a moment, processing his words. She was no longer just a part of the background. She was someone who mattered. And in that moment, she knew that her life was never going to be the same. The mansion, once a place where she had merely existed, was now a place where she could thrive. With each passing day, she would prove that she was capable of so much more than anyone, even herself, had ever imagined. The days passed, and Rosa found herself growing more comfortable in her new role. The mansion no longer felt like a place where she was just passing through. It felt like her home now. Her responsibilities had expanded, and she was no longer just managing the daily operations of the staff. She was making decisions, leading by example, and earning the respect of everyone around her. The staff followed her instructions without hesitation, and even the most difficult of tasks seemed to run smoothly. There was still the occasional challenge, of course. No job was ever without its obstacles, but Rosa faced them head-on, drawing on the confidence she had gained from her promotion and from Vincent's unwavering belief in her. One afternoon, as she walked through the kitchen, overseeing the preparation for a lavish dinner party that evening, she caught sight of Vincent once again. He was standing by the kitchen door, his presence as commanding as ever, watching her with an intensity that was hard to ignore. She had grown used to his presence, but today, something felt different. There was a new energy between them. She could feel it in the air, a quiet understanding, a connection that had grown since that first moment he had stood up for her. Rosa took a deep breath and approached him. How's everything going? Vincent asked, his voice steady and calm. Rosa smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. It's going well, Mr. DeLuca, she replied. The dinner preparations are coming together nicely. Vincent nodded, his gaze not leaving her face. I'm glad to hear that, he said. He paused for a moment, and Rosa could see the wheels turning in his mind. I've been meaning to talk to you about something, he continued. Rosa raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. What is it, she asked. Vincent stepped closer, his expression serious but not unkind. I've noticed how well you've been handling things around here, he said. I've been thinking about the future, about where you fit in. Rosa's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected this conversation. She had always considered herself lucky to have the position she did, but now, hearing Vincent speak about her future, it made her wonder what he saw in her. I want you to take on more responsibility, Vincent said, his voice firm. You're more than capable, and I think it's time you had a more permanent role in the family business. Rosa blinked, taken aback by his words. She had never imagined that she could be part of something so much bigger than the staff she managed. She had never thought of herself as someone who could be involved in the inner workings of the DeLuca family business. More responsibility, she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Vincent nodded. Yes, I've been watching you, Rosa. You're smart, you're resourceful, and you've earned my trust. You've proven yourself. Rosa felt her chest tighten as she processed his words. She had always kept a low profile, doing her job and staying out of the way. But now, it seemed that Vincent saw something in her that she had never seen in herself. She started, but the words got caught in her throat. I'm not asking you to make a decision right now, Vincent continued, his voice gentle. Take some time to think about it. But know that I'm offering you a chance. A chance to be more than just the housekeeper. Rosa's mind raced. She had always dreamed of a better life, one where she didn't have to struggle day after day just to get by. But this was a step into unknown territory. Could she really take on more responsibility in the DeLuca family? Could she really be a part of something so much bigger than herself? Vincent must have seen the hesitation in her eyes because he placed a hand on her shoulder, a reassuring gesture. You've already proven that you're capable, Rosa. Now it's just about taking the next step. Rosa nodded slowly, still processing the enormity of what Vincent was offering her. Thank you, Mr. DeLuca, she said, her voice steady now. I'll think about it. Vincent smiled, his gaze softening. Take all the time you need. But remember, opportunities like this don't come around often. As Vincent turned to leave, Rosa stood there, her heart racing. She had come so far, and now, with the possibility of a new future in front of her, she felt both exhilarated and terrified. Could she really step into this new world, this world of power and responsibility? The thought was both thrilling and daunting. But as she watched Vincent walk away, Rosa felt a quiet determination settle within her. She had earned this. She had earned the respect, the trust, and the opportunity to prove herself once again. And this time, she wouldn't hesitate. She would take the leap. Rosa sat at her small desk in the staff office, her hands resting on the smooth wood as she stared at the papers before her. The mansion had never felt so vast, and the weight of her new role seemed to settle around her like a heavy cloak. She had spent years dreaming of a life where she could stand on her own, where she was more than just the maid. Now, with Vincent's offer echoing in her mind, she was standing on the precipice of that dream. But the path ahead wasn't without its doubts. The DeLuca family was a world she had never imagined being a part of, powerful, dangerous, and full of complexities she wasn't sure she was ready to navigate. The offer to step into a more significant role in the family business was an opportunity that could change everything, but it also came with risks she wasn't entirely prepared for. The mansion's halls, which had once felt like a place she merely existed in, now seemed to be full of expectations. Rosa's position had already earned her the respect of the staff, but this was something entirely different. It was the chance to truly make a difference, to shape her own future, and perhaps even to reshape the world around her. But with the power came the responsibility, and that was the part that made her pause. Could she really handle it? Could she step into a role that was meant for someone like Vincent DeLuca? Rosa had always been cautious, always careful not to overstep. She had learned early on that the best way to survive in a world like this was to keep your head down, do your job, and not draw attention. But now, the world was changing. She was changing. Rosa stood up from her desk and walked to the window, looking out over the sprawling grounds of the DeLuca estate. The garden below was serene, the flowers blooming in vibrant colors, but Rosa's mind was racing. She couldn't help but think of everything she had overcome to get here. Her childhood had been filled with hardships, growing up in a neighborhood where survival was the priority, where every day was a battle. But she had made it through, and now, she was standing on the brink of something she had never thought possible. As she stood there, lost in her thoughts, she heard footsteps approaching from behind. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Vincent. His presence was unmistakable, a silent force that seemed to fill the room. Without him saying a word, "I see you're still thinking it over," Vincent said, his voice calm, but there was an edge to it, something that made Rosa's heart skip a beat. She turned to face him, her hands clasped in front of her. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," Rosa admitted, her voice steady but filled with uncertainty. Vincent studied her for a moment, his eyes searching hers, as though he were weighing her every word. "I wouldn't offer it to you if I didn't believe you were ready," he said, his voice softer now. "But I know it's a big step. It's not easy to accept a role like this. It's not something you just jump into." Rosa nodded, her mind still whirling with possibilities. "I've always been in the background, Mr. DeLuca," she said. "I never thought I'd be in a position like this." Vincent took a step closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "That's why you're the perfect person for this job," he said. "You've always been in the background, always watching, always learning. That's how you've survived all these years. But now, it's time for you to take the lead." Rosa felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had never imagined that someone like Vincent, someone who was so accustomed to being in control, would see her as capable of leading. But in that moment, she understood. He wasn't just offering her a position. He was offering her the chance to prove herself. Not to him, not to the family, but to herself. "I'll do it," Rosa said, her voice firm, the decision settling in her heart. "I'm ready." Vincent's expression softened, and for the first time, Rosa saw something more than the Mafia boss. She saw a man who recognized her potential, a man who saw beyond her station, beyond her background, to the strength inside her. "I knew you would," he said with a nod of approval. "And I know you'll do great things. But remember, you're not alone in this. I'll be here to help you every step of the way." Rosa felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had made the decision. She was ready to take on whatever came next. And as she stood there, looking into Vincent's eyes, she knew that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't yet imagine. This wasn't just about managing the staff anymore. This was about taking control of her destiny, about stepping into a world that had always been just out of reach. And with Vincent by her side, she knew that she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The next few weeks passed in a blur of new responsibilities for Rosa. Each day was a challenge, but one she was eager to face. The mansion felt more like her own home than it ever had before, and with every task she took on, she grew more confident in her new role. The staff respected her, and even Vincent seemed to notice the change in her. Rosa had always kept to herself, but now, she was actively engaging with the other staff members, helping them when they needed it, offering guidance and leadership where it was required. She felt more like a part of the DeLuca family than she ever had. Her duties had expanded beyond just overseeing the staff. She was now making decisions, managing tasks, and handling the daily operations of the mansion with the precision and grace Vincent had always expected of her. It wasn't easy, but it felt rewarding. As Rosa walked through the halls of the mansion one afternoon, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She had always dreamed of a life where she was seen, respected, and valued. But now, standing in the very house that had once been a symbol of her struggle, she realized she had finally reached that dream. She had earned her place. It was late in the afternoon when Vincent called for her. Rosa had just finished meeting with the staff about some upcoming changes when she received the message. "Vincent would like to see you in his office," the assistant had said. Rosa nodded, trying to calm the flutter of nerves in her chest. She had been working hard, but she always felt a slight tension whenever she was called to Vincent's office. It was a mixture of respect, admiration, and a little uncertainty. She knocked softly on the door before entering. Vincent was standing by the window, his back to her as he gazed out at the sprawling grounds. He turned as she entered, his eyes softening when he saw her. "Come in, Rosa," he said, his voice warm. "Please, have a seat." Rosa walked into the room, feeling her nerves start to settle. She sat across from Vincent's desk, her hands folded in her lap. There was an odd sense of calm in the room. "How's everything going?" Vincent asked, his voice low but full of genuine interest. Rosa smiled. "It's going well, Mr. DeLuca. Everything is running smoothly." Vincent nodded. "I know it's not easy," he said, "but I've seen how you've handled things. You're doing great." Rosa's heart swelled with pride at his words. She had never imagined that she would one day be the one receiving compliments from someone like Vincent. It was a strange but wonderful feeling. "Thank you," she said softly. Vincent looked at her for a moment, his gaze steady. "I've been thinking about your future here," he continued. "You've proven yourself in ways that I didn't expect. You're capable of so much more, Rosa." Rosa's heart skipped a beat. What was he saying? Was there more to his offer than just the head housekeeper role? "I want to give you the opportunity to take on even more responsibility," Vincent said. "You've earned my trust, and I want you to be more involved in the family business. Not just managing the mansion, but taking on a leadership role in the operations." Rosa blinked, stunned by his words. This was more than she had ever imagined. The family business? She had always been content with the position she had, but now Vincent was offering her a chance to be a part of something much larger than she had ever dreamed. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've always kept to the background. I never thought I'd be asked to take on such a role." Vincent smiled, his eyes softening. "That's exactly why I'm offering it to you," he said. "You've shown humility, intelligence, and strength. I believe you're ready for this." Rosa felt a rush of emotions flood through her. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The moment she realized that all her hard work had led to something greater than she had ever imagined. She wasn't just a maid or a housekeeper anymore. She was someone who could make a difference, someone who was finally being given the chance to prove her worth. "I'll do it," Rosa said, her voice steady now. "I won't let you down, Mr. DeLuca." Vincent nodded, his expression filled with approval. "I know you won't. This is your chance, Rosa. Take it. You're more than capable." Rosa stood up, feeling a sense of purpose fill her. This was the beginning of something new, something exciting. She was no longer just a part of the background. She was going to shape her own future, take control of her destiny, and prove that she was capable of so much more than she had ever imagined. As she left Vincent's office, a new determination filled her. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was hers to take. She was ready. The days that followed were a whirlwind of adjustments for Rosa. She had taken on the new responsibilities with a quiet determination, and though the pressure was undeniable, she could feel herself growing into her new role. Each decision she made, every task she oversaw, felt like a step further into a world she had once thought was out of reach. She no longer felt like an outsider in the DeLuca mansion. She was becoming part of its very fabric, a vital thread in the intricate tapestry of power and responsibility. But the path ahead wasn't without its challenges. The staff, though respectful, was still adjusting to the changes. Some of them had worked under her for years, and while they recognized her new authority, the dynamics of leadership were always tricky to navigate. Rosa found herself having to balance being firm with the need to remain approachable, a task that was more complicated than she had anticipated. She often found herself alone in the evenings, pacing the quiet halls of the mansion, reflecting on the weight of the decisions she had to make. Her role was no longer just about overseeing the daily operations of the household. She was involved in the bigger picture now. Vincent had given her a chance to prove herself, but now it was up to her to make the most of it. And there were moments, late at night, when doubts crept in. Was she truly ready for this? Could she live up to the expectations that Vincent had set for her? She knew the stakes were high. The DeLuca family's business was complex, its power far-reaching. The higher she climbed, the more there was to lose. But when Rosa thought of Vincent, his unwavering faith in her, she felt a sense of strength that she had never experienced before. It was as though his belief in her had ignited something deep within, a fire that had been smoldering for years, waiting for the right moment to burn brightly. And that moment had come. One afternoon, as Rosa sat in her office, reviewing a report from the staff, she heard a knock on the door. She looked up, startled. She wasn't expecting anyone, and yet, there he was. Vincent. He entered the room without waiting for an invitation, his presence commanding the space. There was a look of seriousness in his eyes that immediately caught Rosa's attention. "We need to talk," he said, his tone steady. Rosa stood up, instinctively sensing the gravity of the conversation. "Of course, Mr. DeLuca. What's on your mind?" Vincent walked over to the desk, his movements purposeful. He didn't sit down, choosing instead to stand with his hands clasped behind his back. "I've been watching how you've been handling things," he began. "You've done well, but there are some challenges coming our way. We need to be prepared." Rosa felt a slight shift in her chest. She had known that there were always risks in the world she was now a part of, but hearing Vincent speak so plainly about challenges sent a chill through her. "What kind of challenges?" she asked, her voice steady but curious. Vincent met her gaze, his eyes unwavering. "There are forces outside of our control, Rosa. People who would see us fail. It's not just about the mansion or the staff anymore. The family business is at a crossroads, and your role in it is about to become much more significant." Rosa's heart beat a little faster. She had always known that there was more to this world than what met the eye, but hearing Vincent speak of these larger forces, of the challenges that loomed just beyond the mansion's walls, was a stark reminder of the weight of her new position. "What do you need from me?" she asked, her voice quiet but determined. Vincent's eyes softened, but only for a moment. "I need you to be ready, Rosa. I need you to take charge, not just of the staff, but of the bigger picture. The decisions we make in the coming weeks will shape the future of this family, and I need someone I can trust to help me steer this ship." Rosa stood there, taking in his words. She had always thought of Vincent as the one in control, the one who made the big decisions. But now, he was offering her the chance to be part of that process, to have a say in the direction the DeLuca family would take. It was a lot to absorb, but Rosa could feel the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. This was no longer just about overseeing the household. It was about something much bigger. "I'm ready," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. Vincent nodded, a small but approving smile tugging at his lips. "I know you are." With those words, the tension in the room seemed to lift. Rosa had been unsure, uncertain of her ability to step into this new world, but now she felt a sense of resolve. She had proven herself as the head housekeeper, but this was different. This was a chance to make her mark in a world she had never thought she could be part of. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She was ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. As Vincent turned to leave the room, he paused and looked back at her, his gaze lingering. "You're not alone in this," he said softly. "I'll be with you every step of the way." Rosa nodded, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and gratitude. She had made it this far, and now, with Vincent's trust and support, there was nothing stopping her from stepping into this new chapter of her life. The days turned into weeks, and Rosa found herself adapting to the demands of her new position with a steady resolve. The mansion, once a place of silent labor and unnoticed footsteps, now felt like her domain. Her new role as part of the family business was more than just a title. It was a chance to shape the future. As she moved through the grand halls of the DeLuca estate, she carried herself differently now, with a newfound confidence that radiated from her every step. She had earned this place, not just by her hard work, but by the trust that Vincent had placed in her. Rosa had been working in the shadows for so long, but now she was stepping into the light, and she was determined not to falter. The family business was no longer just something she observed from the sidelines. She had a hand in its decisions, and every meeting, every task she took on, brought her closer to the heart of the DeLuca empire. But there were still moments of doubt. The business was vast, its reach stretching far beyond the mansion walls, and as much as Rosa had proven herself capable, she still felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. Vincent had been right when he said the stakes were high. Every decision she made had the potential to change the course of the DeLuca family's future, and with that knowledge came a quiet pressure she hadn't fully anticipated. But Rosa was nothing if not resilient. She had been underestimated her entire life, and now she was in control of her destiny. She wasn't about to let fear stop her from moving forward. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the mansion, Rosa found herself standing on the balcony, looking out over the expansive grounds. The world felt calm from up here, as if all the chaos and uncertainty of the day were far behind her. Vincent had given her space to find her footing, but she could feel his eyes on her in a way that made her want to do more, be more. She wanted to prove herself, not just to him, but to herself. She had always been a survivor, but now, she was a leader, and that felt like a victory in itself. She turned as she heard footsteps behind her, and there he was, Vincent, standing a few paces away, his expression unreadable. "You're doing well," he said, his voice calm but firm. Rosa smiled slightly, grateful for the acknowledgement, even if she was still learning to fully embrace her role. "Thank you," she replied. "I'm doing my best." Vincent stepped closer, his eyes studying her with an intensity that made her feel both exposed and understood at the same time. "Your best is exactly what I need," he said. "But I want you to remember something." Rosa raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. "What's that?" "This is just the beginning," Vincent said, his gaze unwavering. "The challenges you face now will only grow, but I believe you can handle them." The weight of his words settled in the air between them, and for the first time, Rosa understood the depth of Vincent's expectations. He had placed his trust in her, and with that trust came the responsibility to succeed. But she didn't feel afraid. In fact, it only fueled her determination. "I won't let you down," Rosa said, her voice steady and filled with resolve. Vincent gave a small nod, a hint of approval in his expression. "I know you won't." There was a moment of silence as the two of them stood there, looking out over the grounds together. Rosa could feel the weight of everything ahead of her, but in that moment, standing next to Vincent, she felt as though she could take on anything. As the days continued to pass, Rosa found herself taking on even more responsibility within the DeLuca empire. She wasn't just overseeing the mansion anymore. She was involved in decisions that affected the family's business dealings, their influence, and their future. It was a world far beyond anything she had imagined, and yet, it was the world she was now part of. Rosa had always dreamed of a life where she didn't have to hide in the shadows, where her voice mattered. And now, she had that life. But even with her newfound sense of power, she remained grounded. She had seen what power could do to people, and she was determined not to lose herself in it. She had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to let that happen. Her thoughts were interrupted one afternoon when she was called to Vincent's office. She had been reviewing some documents when she received the message. "Mr. DeLuca would like to speak with you," the assistant had said. Rosa nodded and made her way to the office, her heart beating a little faster than usual. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew that whatever it was, it would be important. When she entered the room, Vincent was sitting at his desk, his expression unreadable. He looked up as she entered, his gaze steady. "Rosa, come in. I have something to discuss with you." Rosa walked into the room, her heart racing with anticipation. "What is it, Mr. DeLuca?" she asked, her voice steady but curious. Vincent motioned for her to sit, and she took a seat across from him, waiting for him to speak. "I've been thinking about the future," Vincent said, his voice calm. "And I believe it's time for you to take on an even more significant role. You've proven yourself capable, but there's more I need from you." Rosa's heart skipped a beat. "More," she repeated. Vincent nodded. "You've been handling the day-to-day operations well, but it's time for you to step into a higher level of leadership. I need someone who can not only manage, but who can also make decisions that affect the family's future." Rosa blinked, stunned by his words. This was more than she had anticipated. She had been working hard, but now, it seemed that Vincent saw something in her that she hadn't fully seen in herself. "I'm ready," she said, her voice steady. "I won't let you down." Vincent smiled, a rare, genuine smile that made Rosa's heart race. "I know you won't. This is your next step, Rosa. I believe in you." Rosa sat in Vincent's office, the weight of his words still settling over her like a heavy cloak. The offer he had just extended, to take on a leadership role within the family business, was both exhilarating and terrifying. She had always considered herself a behind-the-scenes kind of person, someone who worked hard and stayed out of the way. But now, Vincent was asking her to step into the spotlight, to become someone who made the big decisions, someone who influenced the future of the DeLuca empire. She had come a long way since the days when she was just a maid in the mansion. The journey had been difficult, filled with moments of doubt and uncertainty, but she had proved herself time and time again. She had earned Vincent's trust, and with it, the chance to take on a greater responsibility. But was she truly ready for this? Rosa had always been someone who kept her head down, who did the work and never asked for attention. Now, she was being asked to do something much bigger, to make decisions that could impact not only the mansion but the entire DeLuca family. The thought was overwhelming, but as she sat there, looking at Vincent's calm, unwavering gaze, she realized something important. She had earned this. She had worked for it. And now, it was her time. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady. The words felt right, as if a part of her had always known this was the next step in her journey. Vincent smiled, a rare but genuine smile that softened the usual hardness in his eyes. "I knew you would," he said. "This is your chance to show what you're capable of." Rosa nodded, a surge of determination rising within her. She had always been a survivor, but now she was becoming a leader. She was no longer just a part of the background. She was at the forefront, ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. As Vincent turned to leave, he paused at the door, glancing back at her. "Remember, Rosa," he said, his voice quieter now, "this family, this business, it's built on trust. You've earned mine, and I expect you to earn the trust of everyone else." Rosa stood, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and nervous energy. "I won't let you down," she said, the words coming out with more confidence than she had ever felt before. Vincent nodded, his expression approving. "I know you won't." With that, he left the room, and Rosa was left alone with her thoughts. The reality of what she had just agreed to began to sink in. She had accepted Vincent's offer, but now, she had to prove herself even more than before. The challenges would only grow, but she wasn't afraid. This was what she had been working toward all along. As the days passed, Rosa threw herself into her new role. She began attending meetings with Vincent, helping make decisions that affected the family's operations. It was a world unlike anything she had ever imagined. The business was complicated, full of intricate negotiations and strategies that required a sharp mind and quick thinking. Rosa was learning quickly, asking questions when she didn't understand something and making suggestions when she saw an opportunity. Vincent had always been a man of few words, but he was watching her closely, offering guidance when necessary, but also giving her the space to make her own decisions. The respect he had shown her was now matched by his trust in her ability to lead. It wasn't long before Rosa realized that she was no longer just a part of the background. She was making a real difference. Her decisions were being listened to, and the staff now looked to her for guidance. There were moments when she still felt like the woman who had started as a maid in the mansion, unsure of her place in the world. But each time she walked into a room, each time she took charge of a situation, she felt the confidence she had always lacked slowly becoming second nature. One evening, as Rosa sat at her desk, reviewing the latest reports, there was a knock at the door. She looked up, surprised, and saw one of the staff members standing in the doorway. "Mr. DeLuca would like to see you," the staff member said, before quickly walking away. Rosa stood, her heart pounding in her chest. She had become accustomed to Vincent's presence, but there was something about this summons that made her feel both nervous and excited. She made her way to his office, her footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. When she entered, Vincent was standing by the window, his back to her. He turned as she entered, and for a moment, their eyes locked. He gave her a small smile, one that conveyed more than words could. "Come in, Rosa," he said, his voice as steady as always. "I need to talk to you about something important." Rosa's heart raced as she stepped into the room. She had been anticipating this moment for days, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure what to expect. Vincent motioned for her to sit, and she did so, folding her hands in her lap as she waited for him to speak. "You've been doing great," Vincent said, his tone calm and approving. "But there's one thing I want to ask you." Rosa sat up straighter, her curiosity piqued. "What's that?" "I'm giving you more responsibility," Vincent said, his voice firm. "Starting tomorrow, you'll be working directly with me on some of the most important decisions we'll be making for the family. This is a big step, and I need you to be ready for it." Rosa's breath caught in her throat. She had been preparing herself for this moment, but hearing it from Vincent made it feel real. This was the moment she had been waiting for, and it was her time to step up and prove that she was ready. "I'm ready," Rosa said, her voice steady and full of determination. Vincent nodded, his expression softening slightly. "I know you are. I wouldn't have offered you this role if I didn't believe in you." Rosa felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. She wasn't just an employee anymore. She was a trusted partner in the DeLuca family business, and that meant more to her than anything else. She had worked hard for this moment, and now, it was time to take the next step. The following weeks were a blur of decisions, meetings, and late nights for Rosa. Each day, she grew more accustomed to her new role, but the weight of responsibility never quite left her shoulders. The mansion, once a place where she merely existed, now felt like a space she was shaping, a space where she had a voice that mattered. As she stood in the main hallway, gazing at the grand staircase that led up to the upper levels, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. The life she had known, the one where she simply did what she was told and stayed out of the way, felt like a distant memory. Now, she was no longer just an employee. She was an integral part of the DeLuca family business. She had earned that place through hard work, sacrifice, and a quiet determination to succeed. Rosa had proven herself to Vincent, and in turn, he had entrusted her with responsibilities that she never imagined she would have. But the more she took on, the more she realized how much she still had to learn. The family's operations were vast, and every decision she made seemed to ripple outwards, affecting not just the staff in the mansion, but the entire DeLuca empire. She had her moments of doubt, of course. There were days when the enormity of it all seemed overwhelming. The decisions she had to make, some of them personal, some of them business, were not always easy. But through it all, she had Vincent's support. His guidance, though often silent, was always there. He had given her the tools she needed to succeed, but now it was up to her to take those tools and carve out her own path. The trust he had placed in her was something she couldn't take lightly. One afternoon, after a particularly exhausting meeting with some of the family's business partners, Rosa found herself back in her office, reviewing reports. The mansion was quieter than usual, the staff finishing their duties for the day. She had always been someone who thrived in the quiet moments, when she could collect her thoughts and plan her next steps. But today she felt a sense of urgency, a sense that something was shifting. It wasn't until she heard the knock on her door that she realized someone was waiting for her. She looked up and saw Vincent standing in the doorway, his posture relaxed but his expression as unreadable as ever. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said, his voice calm, but there was a note of something deeper in it. "No, of course not," Rosa replied, standing up quickly. "What can I do for you?" Vincent stepped into the room, his eyes scanning the space before locking on hers. "I wanted to talk to you about the next steps," he said. Rosa felt a flicker of anxiety. What did he mean by the next steps? Had she done something wrong? She had worked hard to meet his expectations, but now, with Vincent standing before her, she realized how little she actually knew about what was to come. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Vincent's gaze softened. "The DeLuca family is growing," he said. "There are bigger moves we need to make. I need someone who can help lead us into the future, someone who can think beyond the daily operations and take on strategic decisions." Rosa's heart skipped a beat. "And you want that person to be me?" she asked, unsure if she was hearing him correctly. Vincent nodded. "I've seen what you can do. You've been more than just a manager. You've been a leader. You have the vision, the drive, and the ability to make tough decisions. I trust you, Rosa." Rosa stood still, her mind racing. This was more than she had ever imagined. She had thought that the head housekeeper role was the pinnacle, but now Vincent was offering her something more. The opportunity to be a part of something bigger, something that would shape the future of the family, was a dream she hadn't allowed herself to fully realize. But now that it was here, it felt like the right moment to step forward. "I'm ready," she said, her voice steady and firm. "I won't let you down." Vincent's expression softened, a rare smile tugging at his lips. "I know you won't," he said, "and I know that you'll make the right decisions." Rosa felt a wave of gratitude wash over her, but there was also a sense of responsibility that settled deep in her chest. She wasn't just taking on a bigger role, she was taking on the future of the DeLuca family. She could feel the weight of that responsibility, but it didn't overwhelm her. It empowered her. As Vincent turned to leave the room, he paused at the door, looking back at her. "I'm proud of what you've accomplished, Rosa," he said, his voice quieter now. "This is your time. Don't let anyone or anything hold you back." With that, he left the room, leaving Rosa alone with her thoughts. The mansion felt different now. It was no longer just a place where she worked. It was a place where she could make a lasting impact. She stood there for a moment, taking it all in. This was it. This was her time to step into the future, to take control of her destiny, and to prove that she was ready for whatever came next. Rosa stood by the large window in her office, her gaze lost in the horizon beyond the mansion's grounds. The evening sun was setting, casting long shadows across the expansive garden, but inside, there was a sense of clarity she hadn't felt before. Everything in her life had led to this moment, this new chapter where she was no longer just a part of the background. She had become a key player in a world she had once only observed from a distance. The DeLuca family business was vast, full of complexities and decisions that had far-reaching consequences. Yet, now, Rosa was standing at the center of it all. The weight of responsibility she had once feared was now a mantle she embraced. She was ready to face whatever came next. The transition from the housekeeper to a position of leadership had been gradual, but it was now undeniable. She had earned the trust of Vincent and the respect of the staff. Her decisions were no longer just about keeping the household running smoothly. They were about shaping the future of the family and its empire. The challenge was exhilarating, but it wasn't without its moments of doubt. Rosa had spent so many years working in the shadows, doing the tasks others didn't want to do, and now, she had to learn how to make the hard calls. There were days when she would lie awake, wondering if she had what it took to lead. But every time that doubt crept in, she remembered Vincent's words, his trust in her, his belief in her. "This is your time," he had told her, and now, more than ever, she felt it. One evening, Vincent called for her. It had been a hectic day, filled with meetings and decisions that had pushed her further than she thought possible, and Rosa was ready to relax. But she knew that when Vincent called, it was for something important. She made her way to his office, her mind racing with thoughts of what might be next. When she entered, Vincent was sitting at his desk, papers scattered before him, but his eyes were focused on her. "Rosa," he said, his voice calm, but with an edge of seriousness. "I need to discuss something important with you." She nodded, walking into the room and taking a seat across from him. Her pulse quickened. "Of course, Mr. DeLuca. What is it?" Vincent set down the papers in front of him and leaned back in his chair. His eyes locked with hers, and for a moment, the weight of everything they had been through together settled into the room. "You've done well, Rosa. I've watched you grow into this role, and I'm proud of what you've accomplished. But now, I'm asking you to take on something bigger." Rosa felt her heart race at his words. "Bigger?" she asked, her voice steady despite the nervous excitement bubbling inside her. Vincent nodded. "There's a new opportunity coming up, something that will require all of your skills, your intellect, and your leadership." Rosa leaned forward, her curiosity piqued. "What kind of opportunity?" Vincent's gaze was unwavering. "There are business deals on the horizon, deals that will expand the DeLuca influence even further. But these deals come with their own set of challenges. I want you to lead this project, Rosa. You'll be overseeing everything from negotiations to implementation. It's a huge responsibility, but I trust you to handle it." Rosa's mind spun as she processed his words. The opportunity to lead such a significant project was everything she had worked for, everything she had hoped for. But with it came the weight of decisions that would shape not only her future, but the future of the DeLuca family. "I'm ready," she said, her voice clear, despite the rush of emotions. "I won't let you down." Vincent nodded, a look of approval in his eyes. "I know you won't. This is your chance to prove that you're not just capable, you're essential to this family's future." The moment felt pivotal, as if everything that had led up to this point was now culminating in the decision Rosa was about to make. This wasn't just about managing the mansion anymore. It was about taking control of a new chapter that could expand the DeLuca empire. Rosa felt a surge of confidence, a feeling that she had earned every step of this path. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was ready to take on whatever challenges came her way. The weight of leadership didn't seem so heavy anymore. It felt like an opportunity to finally shape her own destiny. As she left Vincent's office, Rosa couldn't help but smile. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was truly in control of her future. She had worked hard to get here, and now she had the chance to prove her worth on a much larger scale. The road ahead would be challenging, but Rosa knew that with Vincent's support and her own determination, she was ready for anything.